national touring company of Amadeus. It's a powerful play, and he's gotten excellent reviews. Would you welcome Mark Hamill?
I'm looking at it saying, is that how Mozart dressed?
You're going to thank me for dressing up for the show.
I've seen medallions of him with his beautiful white hair and his floppy tie.
That's a funny thing. I remember someone had seen Amadeus at the National Theatre in London. And I said, well, what's it about? And he said, well, it's about a rivalry between Mozart and a more mediocre composer, and the rumor that Mozart was poisoned by this composer. And naturally, as an actor, you always think, is there anything in it for me?
Yeah.
And I always thought of Mozart as, I don't know, 55, double chin, and I didn't give it another thought. I wish I had. As it turned out,
He was a wild man.
he was a wild man who died at 35, and I think in the 19th century, they sort of wanted to portray him as, they say the purity of his life was reflected in the purity of his music. And Peter Schaffer, who was a one-time music critic, through his love of Mozart, wanted to investigate this rumor with no thought of making a play out of it. And to his shock and delight, he discovered that Mozart, through his letters mostly, was a very raucous,
Bizarre.
He loved scatological humor, toilet jokes, and he loved to pretend he was a monkey. He'd jump up on furniture and turn cartwheels. I mean, it's really shocking. I think one of the greatest things in the play is the contrast between this gorgeous music and this man who walks in and insults everyone, including the emperor,
right,
without even realizing it.
Mm.
It's a real contrast. It's a real character role for me. It's not the leading role. John Wood, who's this wonderful English actor, plays the leading role of Salieri, and the real conflict is between Salieri, who is a good man in every way, a clean living, honest, admirable person, and his conflict between God. Amadeus means beloved of God, and
right,
the thing that drives him mad is, why did you choose this teenage punk from Salzburg to be your voice on earth? I mean, if Mozart had Salieri's personality, you'd have a perfect person. And the hardest thing for me was trying to figure out how to say these outrageous things right to people's faces. I mean, without realizing. The main thing is that he was not trying to insult people.
It was just a natural approach to it.
He was a child prodigy. When he was 3.5, 4 years old, his father brought him all around Europe. This kid could listen to a sonata played once and play it back blindfolded. I mean, it was a scary kind of thing. In the 1700s, they had no word for genius. But what happened, he was so sheltered. I mean, the only thing I could compare it to would be like a child who had a hit television series when he was 5, and he was pampered. They brought him food, "Are you all right?" and this, and driving the car. And it's canceled when he's 14. He goes to high school, and he's lost. He doesn't know how to make his own bed.
Right.
And Mozart he needed someone. He always needed someone to help him. And I think the tendency is the audience wants to feel they want to jump up on the stage and say, "Shut up! Don't say anything more." Because there was no sort of moderation in his life. This was a guy who could play billiards, literally, and drink wine, just drunk. And between turns, write directly onto the paper, without any corrections whatsoever, these incredible concertos and sonatas.
Play a little Mozart, Mort. Oh, play a little.
Yeah.
You can't play Mozart?
Yeah.
What?
You can.
I know it. I'm too far from the piano.
Oh, come on.
No. No.
Can I explain why I'm wearing blue jeans on your show?
In an 18th century drawing room? It is not.
Of course it is.
That's an 18th century drawing room.
not
That's by Burt Bacharach.
I was always afraid when I heard the logo of Amadeus, this, the spooky kind of figure, and I thought, well, I don't want to go to the theater and be lectured on opera for 2 hours. I wasn't an opera fan, and it's just wonderfully spooky with ghosts, and it's like a whodunit. It's
been one of the giant hits, dramatic hits of Broadway for a couple of years.
And I just tried out for it like all the other bums. I was
Did
there.
you try out for it?
Oh, of course. They didn't.
Luke Skywalker?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's both a great blessing and a great curse because they say, well, we've seen you in Star Wars, we know what you can do. And I would just tell jokes and do impressions and fool around. And I saw the play. I saw it with Tim Curry, who was wonderful. I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to go out for this. And I would imagine that when they heard that I wanted to try out, they thought, Luke Skywalker. Well, they gave me a number, like, and you know what it's like.
Yeah.
If you're in a dark theater and they go, next, and your knees are knocking back. They just one thing to do a British accent for your friends around the coffee table. But I was auditioning for Sir Peter Hall, who was the founder of the Royal Shakespeare Company and now runs the National Theater. You don't know what fear is. It was... the only thing I had going for me was the element of surprise, because that's all. I mean, I didn't come from a showbiz family. I did plays in school,
Right.
And
You've had vast acting experience, though, haven't you?
Yes, but I was an 8.5-year overnight success in Star Wars. So I got out there, and as nervous as I was, I could see them sort of sitting up, you know, and I felt more confident, and it just got better and better, and it's really exciting for me because it's not like movies where you say that's it. You have to have it by lunch, and that's the end of it for history. You know, for the rest of.
Talk a little bit too about. We're all dying to hear about the Return of the Jedi. This is the final.
That's it.
This is the trilogy.
In the very first time that they offered me the role of Luke, they said that if this one is successful, then we want to finish part 2 and part 3. It was a trilogy with a beginning and a middle and an end, which was why Empire had such a cliff-hanging ending.
Yeah.
Han Solo turned into a coffee table, and all these unresolved things. You know, and the thing about Darth Vader, you think you have problems with in-laws, right? But this one is the big finish, and I'm amazed that, well, Spielberg and Lucas together. I always think, you know, how are they going to do it again? We've seen...
Is this the greatest? Is this the best one coming out?
It's the most fun. I mean, I think...
New characters?
All the old characters with new characters as well. I mean, there's a whole race of creatures that I predict will put the Smurfs into hyperspace because they're unbelievable and they become our allies. It's amazing. It's very, very funny picture.
But it ends.
That's the end, yes. You get the feeling that...
Don't tell us the end.
I'm not allowed to, or they'll, you know, I've done my little oath, cross my heart, and hope to die.
I love it. Continued success to you,
Thank
Mark.
you.
You're doing all the right career things, I hope.
I hope so.